We were taught that symbols are just drawings, lines, shapes, abstract representations of ideas, but that's the lie. Symbols are not passive, they are not harmless, they are frequency containers, coded language for the structure of reality itself. From ancient temples to corporate logos, from magic circles to circuit boards, symbols shape the field around us, not metaphorically, literally. Because reality isn't built on matter, it's built on vibration, and symbols are how vibration is anchored into form. This is why the ancient world obsessed over geometry, why every mystery school guarded certain signs, why entire systems from manifestation to magic, science to sacred texts revolve around pattern. Because patterns carry power, not just to represent, but to influence, not just to describe reality, but to command it. And the ones who knew this, they didn't just study symbols, they used them. They encoded them into architecture, ritual, language, law, and belief. You see, symbols are bridges between mind and matter, between thought and manifestation, between the seen and the unseen. They bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious in the field. You can call it the Akashic field, the matrix, the quantum realm, or the mind of God, but the result is the same. What you place into the field shapes what comes out. That's why sacred symbols are so dangerous. Not because they are evil, but because they are effective. Because when used with intention, symbols don't just influence you, they reprogram your perception. And since perception is the filter through which you experience reality, symbols can shift your entire world. That's not superstition, that's frequency physics. Modern science is just now catching up with what ancient mystics always knew, that the universe is geometric, that thought has form, and that symbols are the blueprints. This is why occultists hide them in plain sight, why secret societies spend lifetimes studying one sigil, why kings and emperors wore them on their crowns, carved them into their thrones, and embedded them into the very structures of power. Because symbols don't just decorate power, they generate it. And while most people scroll past these shapes every day, asleep to their meaning, the ones who remember, they know how to use them. This video isn't about history, it's about activation. We're going to explore 7 of the most powerful symbols ever known. Symbols that don't just describe how reality works, they shape it. Symbols that are scientifically resonant, spiritually ancient, and energetically alive. They've been used for creation and for control. But now it's your turn to remember, because when you understand the code, you stop being a piece on the board and start becoming the one who plays. Let's begin. It begins with a circle, not a doctrine, not a belief, a shape. And from that shape, a world is born. The flower of life is one of the oldest, most powerful, and most mysterious symbols known to humanity. Found carved into the Temple of Osiris in Abydos, Egypt, burned into granite that predates our official history, it has appeared in temples, manuscripts, and mystery schools across civilizations, and not by accident. Because this isn't just a pretty pattern, it's a cosmic key, a code that holds the blueprint for all life, all form, all frequency. To the untrained eye, it's just a repeating series of overlapping circles, but look deeper, and you begin to see sacred geometry unfolding. The seed of life, the egg of life, the tree of life, Metatron's cube, the platonic solids all emerge from this one geometric matrix. The ancients didn't draw this for decoration. They used it to remember how reality works. Because the flower of life isn't symbolic, it's structural. It encodes the mathematics of sound, the geometry of light, the architecture of space-time. You can find it reflected in the shapes of snowflakes, the pattern of cells as they divide, the structure of molecules, even the toroidal field that surrounds every atom, planet, and living being. This one symbol maps how energy becomes matter. And that's not just mysticism, it's physics. Nassim Haramein, a physicist studying unified field theory, has shown how the 64 tetrahedron grid, the 3D structure implied by the flower of life, mirrors the quantum fluctuations at the subatomic level. It models how space itself curves and organizes. Ancient civilizations knew this without equations. They felt it. They lived it. Because reality isn't random, it follows form, and the flower of life is the sacred fingerprint embedded in all creation. But there's another reason this symbol matters. It doesn't just describe the outside world. It reflects your inner one. Your energy field, your auric geometry, follows the same harmonic structure. Your chakras, your breath cycles, your brain waves all operate in patterns that mirror sacred geometry. That's why ancient temples were built using these proportions, why initiates meditated on this symbol to access altered states, why mystics called it the language of God, not because it was religious, but because it was resonant. Resonance is the key. When you look at the flower of life, it's not just visual, it's vibrational. Your nervous system, your cells, your consciousness respond. Because symbols like this don't enter the mind, they enter the field. The flower of life isn't just to be understood, it's to be felt. And when you feel it, you remember. You are not separate from the pattern, you are part of it. And by aligning with it, you don't just observe reality, you create it. The ancients didn't worship this symbol. They used it to unlock coherence, to realign themselves with the blueprint, to heal, to manifest, to build, to connect. And that's the real secret. When you embody the geometry of creation, you become a conscious creator. That's why this symbol was hidden in plain sight, to keep you from recognizing what you are. But now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You are a pattern within the pattern, a living piece of sacred geometry. And the more you tune to the code, the more reality responds in kind. There's a reason magicians draw symbols in circles, a reason why spells are not spoken but written, and a reason why ancient mystics, chaos magicians, and even corporate marketers all use the same tool, the sigil. To the average eye, a sigil looks like a strange doodle. Curved lines, sharp angles, letters twisted into design. But behind its abstract shape lies something potent. A command encoded, a desire charged, a frequency compressed into symbol. You see, a sigil is not a symbol of belief. It's a tool of manifestation. It is the transformation of thought into geometry and then into reality. The process is deceptively simple. 1. You write a clear intention. 2. You remove the repeating letters. 3. You rearrange what's left into an abstract design. 4. You meditate on it, then forget it. Why forget? Because the conscious mind, the ego, clings. It doubts. It blocks. But the subconscious mind speaks in image, in rhythm, in symbol. And when you encode a pure intention into a shape and plant it deep in the psyche, it begins to shift the field from below the surface. It's not magic in the fantasy sense. It's more like programming. A sigil is a compressed code injected into the operating system of your mind and into the energetic structure of the reality around you. This is why chaos magicians like Austin Osman Spare in the early 20th century used sigils as their primary method of creating change, not through rituals or worship, but through intention encoded into symbol. And modern science is catching up. Neuroscientists have shown that the brain doesn't distinguish between imagined symbols and real experiences. That visualization creates new neural pathways, that symbols, especially charged, abstract ones, bypass logic and affect the subconscious directly. But it goes even deeper. According to quantum theory, the observer influences the system, meaning that focused consciousness shapes probability. So when a symbol is charged with emotional intent and planted in the mind and field, it becomes a probability anchor, a kind of magnetic attractor pulling potential into form. This is what sigils do. They don't force reality. They bend it subtly, silently, consistently, until the shape you drew becomes the shape of your life. And guess what? You're surrounded by sigils every day. Corporate logos, national seals, magical symbols embedded into architecture, currency, and even pop culture. These aren't just designs. They're charged, ritually constructed, geometrically balanced, energetically aligned. They work because you don't know they're working. Your subconscious doesn't ask for permission. It sees a symbol and it responds. This is why the elite use sigils constantly, why secret societies obsess over them, why ancient grimoires were filled with them not for show, but for influence. But here's the shift. You don't have to be a magician or an initiate to use them. You already do. Every thought you repeat, every word you believe, every image you hold is a sigil in motion. The difference is intention. Are you choosing your symbols, or are they choosing you? When you create your own sigil, you stop being a passive receiver and start becoming a conscious programmer. Because the universe is not just listening to your words, it's listening to your frequency. And symbols are frequency containers. A sigil is not superstition, it's subtle science. And when wielded with clarity, it becomes one of the most powerful tools for creation that exists. So the next time you draw something, remember, you're shaping the field. You're not waiting for magic, you're already making it. Before language, before time, before even thought, there was motion. Not straight, not square, not chaotic, but curved, rhythmic, infinite. There was the spiral. You see it in the curl of galaxies, in the unfurling of a fern, in the shape of a hurricane, in the double helix of your DNA. The spiral is not a symbol humans invented. It's the path that energy takes when it's alive. It is nature's most consistent pattern, not static evolving, not rigid expanding, not linear eternal. And that's what makes it one of the most sacred, powerful, and misunderstood symbols in existence. Because to understand the spiral is to understand how life moves, how consciousness expands, and how reality unfolds in layers, loops, cycles, and ascensions. This is why the ancients carved spirals into stone, long before formal religion existed, why petroglyphs in Ireland, Peru, and Australia, cultures separated by oceans and centuries, all shared the same shape, why sacred sites, from stone circles to pyramids, were aligned to spiraling energies in the earth and sky. The spiral wasn't decoration, it was direction. It was the map. Look closely, and you'll see the spiral is the visual embodiment of the golden ratio, also known as phi, 1.618. It's the math of beauty, balance, and biology. The distance between the spiral's turns, it increases according to that ratio. And that same ratio appears in the faces of sunflowers, the spacing of tree branches, even the proportions of the human body. This ratio isn't random, it's harmonic. It represents how energy grows without losing balance, how life unfolds without force, how the universe scales itself from micro to macro with perfect coherence. And this isn't just philosophy, it's science. Physicists studying fluid dynamics, cosmic expansion, and fractal structures all confirm what mystics knew long ago. The spiral is the fingerprint of intelligent design. But here's what makes it more than just beautiful. It's also the shape of memory, of transformation, of becoming. Spirals show up in your life when you revisit the same lesson but from a higher level. They show up in your emotions, your healing, your spiritual path. The same theme, the same shadow looping back, but with more awareness, more strength, more light. That's not a failure. That's the spiral. It teaches that evolution isn't a ladder, it's a spiral staircase. You rise by returning, you grow by remembering, and every turn holds a key. This is why energy moves in spirals not just in nature, but in you. Your breath forms a spiral. Your kundalini energy rises in a spiral. Even your thoughts, when focused with intention, ripple outward in toroidal spirals of resonance. The spiral is how consciousness moves through matter, and the more you align with its rhythm, the more life flows through you instead of against you. But there's a reason this symbol is both sacred and guarded. Because in the spiral lies the secret of manifestation. It teaches you that reality isn't built in straight lines. It's built in frequency patterns, energetic spirals of thought, emotion, belief. The spiral shows that what you focus on returns to you not in the exact same way, but with amplification, with a new layer, a new lesson. This is why ancient initiates used spiral paths in temples and labyrinths to walk the path of creation itself, to step into rhythm with the divine unfolding of all things. To spiral is to return, but never to the same place, always forward, always upward. That is evolution. That is magic. That is you. You are a spiral of memory and light, of shadow and gold, of collapse and rising. And once you understand this, you no longer fight the cycles. You spiral with them, and you ascend. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, but in truth, they're much more. They're also the keys to reality. In esoteric traditions, the eye is not a symbol of surveillance. It is a symbol of awareness. The all-seeing eye, the eye of Horus, the eye of providence. These symbols don't represent control. They represent consciousness itself. Not the kind that simply watches, but the kind that creates. Modern science calls it the observer effect. In quantum physics, when a particle is not being observed, it exists in a state of infinite potential, a wave function. But the moment it is observed, it collapses into a defined state. A choice is made, a reality is selected. In other words, what you observe becomes real. Not because you forced it, but because attention itself is a creative force. This is what the ancient mystery schools knew. This is what the eye truly represents. Awareness as the architect of reality. And here's where it gets deeper. The human body has a built-in eye. The pineal gland, nestled deep in the center of the brain, often referred to as the third eye, is shaped like a pine cone and has light-sensitive cells. Just like your retina, it's biologically wired to perceive light, both literal and subtle. In yogic and Egyptian traditions, It's the seat of inner vision, the gate between the material and spiritual realms, the throne of intuition, clarity, and awakened consciousness. This is why the Eye of Horus mirrors the layout of the brain itself. It wasn't just art, it was anatomical initiation. And when this inner eye opens, whether through meditation, breath, light, or intent, your perception changes. You stop seeing the world as something outside of you. You begin to see it as something responding to you. Your thoughts begin to shape experience. Your focus begins to pull reality into form. Because observation is not passive, it's an act of creation. The eye is a lens and a projector. It receives and it emits, and what you choose to perceive expands. This is why symbols of the eye appear in ancient temples, mystical texts, and even on modern currency, because deep down, those in power have always known what you see becomes. This is also why fear-based media floods the collective, to hijack your perception, to make you focus on what disempowers, to turn your eye inward, not in remembrance, but in retreat. Because if your eye remains closed, if your awareness stays asleep, you'll continue to collapse reality into someone else's version of the truth. But when you activate the eye, when you learn to see through illusion, when you begin to witness yourself and witness the field, and witness how every thought is a seed and every gaze is a beam of light, you start to reclaim the power you forgot you had. This is why mystics meditated with their eyes closed, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly, to see beyond the veil, to become the observer, not the victim, to become the dreamer, not the dream. Because what you truly see, not with your eyes, but with your knowing, begins to shape the world around you. This is not a metaphor, it's mechanics. Your attention is a tuning fork, your vision is a selector, your belief is a beacon. So the next time you see the eye, whether on a wall or in a mirror, ask yourself, what am I choosing to see, and what reality am I creating through my gaze? Because this eye is not watching you, it is you remembering how to watch. If the circle is unity and the square is stability, then the triangle is transformation. To the untrained eye, it's just a simple shape, 3 sides, 3 points, closed and stable. But in sacred traditions, the triangle is more than geometry. It is the first act of creation. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 3. From unity comes polarity. From polarity comes manifestation. This is the secret of the triangle. It doesn't just represent form, it represents force. In every tradition, the triangle is sacred. Mind, body, spirit, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Ma'at, Isis, Nephthys, creation, preservation, destruction, thought, word, action. The triangle is the trinity of becoming, because nothing comes into this world without 3 points. 1. A conscious intention. 2. A directional force. 3. A material manifestation. When you activate all 3, you don't just imagine, you create. This is why the triangle is the symbol of manifestation itself. In Hermetic teachings, the triangle was known to bind the 3 planes of existence. Asterisk, the mental plane. Asterisk, the emotional plane. Asterisk, the physical plane. When all 3 are in alignment, your intention pierces the veil. It enters the field not as an idea, but as a directive. Reality bends not from force, but from coherence. That's why so many power symbols throughout history are triangular. The eye of providence sits inside a triangle. Alchemical symbols for fire, air, water, and earth, all triangular. The Star of David is two interlaced triangles, as above, so below. Even the Merkabah, the light body vehicle, is formed by intersecting tetrahedrons, 3D triangles in motion. This isn't coincidence. It's geometry in action. Because the triangle amplifies intention. It focuses energy. It stabilizes polarity into purpose. Even in modern engineering and architecture, triangles are the strongest structure. They distribute force evenly. And in energy work, they do the same. Triangular grids are used to focus vibration, to channel frequency, to stabilize transformation. In manifestation practice, the triangle becomes a personal code. You hold the vision, top point. You align the emotion, left base. You take action, right base. And through that trinity, something becomes real. The triangle teaches that thought alone is not enough. Emotion without clarity is scattered. Action without purpose is blind. But when thought, feeling, and movement become one, reality shifts. That's why pyramids, the 3D triangle, were built by ancient civilizations around the globe, not just as tombs or monuments, but as energy devices. Because triangles don't just represent manifestation, they generate it. This is also why the triangle appears so often in occult systems, military insignia, and corporate design, not just for aesthetics, but for energetic influence. The triangle points up toward spirit, toward ascension, or it points down into matter, into embodiment. When inverted and combined, they form the hexagram, the union of opposites. The triangle is the reminder that power is not force, it is alignment. You don't have to push reality. You tune to it. You align the triad: intention, vibration, motion, and the world responds. So, the next time you see a triangle, don't see a shape, see a portal. Because in that symbol lies the code to creation. 3 points. 1 purpose, infinite potential. It's all around you. 6 sides, 4 corners, sharp edges, solid lines. It's in your rooms, your buildings, your devices. The world as you know it is shaped by it. The cube is the foundation of the physical world, not because it's the most complex structure, but because it's the most stable. The cube is the box, and that's exactly what makes it sacred and dangerous. In sacred geometry, the cube represents structure, form, embodiment, and containment. It's the symbol of the material plane, the moment infinite potential takes shape and becomes matter. In Kabbalistic mysticism, it relates to Malkuth, the kingdom, the earth, the grounding base of the tree of life. The cube is not evil, but it is binding, because it represents definition. And in a world built on vibration and flow, definition can either serve you or trap you. That's the paradox of the cube. It is both the container and the cage. This is why so many esoteric and occult systems use the cube as a central symbol, because those who understand the structure of reality also understand the power of boundaries and how to manipulate them. You may have heard of the black cube of Saturn found in Mecca, in elite rituals, in modern tech symbolism. Why Saturn? Because in ancient astrology, Saturn ruled time, law, karma, and limitation. It was the great teacher and also the great restrictor. In esoteric thought, Saturn is the force that crystallizes energy into form. It slows things down, makes them physical, real, and the cube is its throne. This is why the cube is worshipped, feared, and encoded. because those who master the cube master matter. But there's a deeper layer. In 3D geometry, the cube holds hidden sacred forms. If you rotate a cube just right, you'll see a hexagram emerge, the Star of David. Unfold it, and you get across the intersection of vertical, spirit, and horizontal, matter. Rebuild it, and you get a box again, the crucifixion of infinite spirit into finite space. This is not just Christian symbolism. This is the metaphysical map of embodiment. To incarnate into this world is to enter the cube, to feel heaviness, slowness, boundaries, to believe, even for a while, that you are separate from the source. But that's the initiation, because the cube is not a prison unless you forget the way out. The way out is through awareness, through mastery, through realizing that the walls you thought were closing in are made of thought itself. The cube is the ultimate illusion. It appears solid, but it's built on vibration. Your body, your mind, this planet, all encoded in the geometry of the cube. But frequency, your frequency, can reshape it. This is why mystics meditated inside cube-shaped spaces, why initiatory chambers were constructed as cubes, why ancient rites involved entering a tomb and being reborn from it. Because the cube is not the end, it's the chrysalis, the place where the formless takes form and, when ready, transcends it. So what do you do with the cube? You don't destroy it. You inhabit it with consciousness. You make the material sacred again. You bring spirit into structure. And you remember that limitation is not the opposite of power, it is its refinement. Fatigue. You came here to master the box, not to be trapped in it. And when you do, you realize the cube is not your prison. It's your platform. It's the first shape your hand ever drew, the oldest mark on cave walls, the symbol of eternity, unity, and the divine. The circle. It has no beginning, no end, no corners, no sides. It is the symbol of wholeness, the unbroken pattern, the field of infinite potential. And it is everywhere. The sun, the moon, the iris of your eye, the mandalas of Tibet, the halos of saints, the wheels of time and karma. The circle isn't just a spiritual shape, it is the structure of flow. It's how energy moves when it's unobstructed. It's how creation breathes when it's in balance. But here's what makes it truly sacred. The circle is not static. It's dynamic containment. It holds the paradox of form without limitation, of boundary without break. In sacred geometry, the circle is the womb of all other shapes. From one circle comes two, the vesica piscis, then 3, 4, 6, the seed of life. It's from the circle that the entire geometry of reality unfolds. The ancients didn't worship the circle because it was simple. They revered it because it was eternal. Temples were built in circular patterns, not just for symmetry, but to generate resonance. Circular layouts amplify sound, harmonize energy, and create a feedback loop between the physical and the unseen. It's no accident that sacred spaces from Stonehenge to the Great Kivas to crop circles are always round. They weren't just art, they were technology. Circles contain frequency, and when you step into one physically or symbolically, you step into a field of alignment. Modern science reflects this. Electromagnetic fields radiate in toroidal circular flows. From the smallest atom to the human heart, to galaxies, energy moves in loops. It contracts, it expands, and it always returns to itself. This is why the circle also represents completion, a cycle, a turning of the wheel. Birth, growth, death, rebirth. Time itself is not linear, it's circular. And the more you resist the circle, the more you repeat it unconsciously. But once you align with it, you begin to move through it with awareness. You become not a victim of the cycle, but a navigator of it. This is the hidden power of the circle. It doesn't trap you. It reminds you that everything is connected, and that you are not separate from the whole. You are within it, and the whole is also within you. That's why mandalas are used for meditation, why sacred circles are drawn before ritual, why even sigils and seals begin and end in circular frames. Because the circle is a containment of intention, a sacred boundary where the inner and outer can meet. It says, here, in this space, the divine flows. And the more you work with this geometry in thought, in symbol, in practice, the more your life begins to mirror its wisdom. Smooth cycles, harmonious return, wholeness without force. The circle is the opposite of control. It is coherence. It teaches that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed, only reborn. So when you see the circle, whether in the sky, on a page, or in a dream, remember, this is the infinite field. The source before separation, the pulse before the pattern, the silence before the sound. And you are part of it, always were, always will be. You are not just inside the circle. You are the circle.